Good morning. It is now 15 minutes after the hour, and you've tuned in just in time to forecast for your weekend. If you have big plans this upcoming weekend, then you've tuned in just in time. We'll take a look at the overall weather pattern to see as systems change and as they progress. Of course, it's only Monday, so we're talking about Friday and Saturday and Sunday, a long ways away. And if you have big, important plans, then we invite you to tune into the Weather Channel, say the middle and the latter part of the week, and of course the forecast will become much more accurate. We're talking about a trough of low pressure over the east, and that will actually get a little bit deeper toward the weekend. So we're talking about unsettled weather for the mid-Atlantic, parts of the southeast. Afternoon high, it's fairly seasonal. We'll find highs in the 50s. That's a little below normal, actually, but everywhere else, readings should be on target for this time of year. A large area of 70s over the central and southern plains, with our coldest year here near the Canadian border. It'll be a little windy over the Great Lakes by the end of the week. And the way the forecast stands right now, we're looking for a coastal area of low pressure to develop, much like last weekend. And we're talking about wet weather up and down the immediate eastern seaboard. Of course, we'll keep you posted as we get closer and closer to the weekend. And the forecast becomes more accurate, so you want to tune into the Weather Channel later in the week. Stay with us. Coming up in just a moment, we'll check on the 5-day.
Well, once again, the Northeast is drying out after a very wet weekend. Now the Great Lakes region faces a wet morning commute as low pressure crosses from the plains to the Ohio Valley. Good morning and welcome to WeatherScope. I'm Will Annan.
And good morning. I'm Vivian Brown. The front, actually, that area of low pressure in front of it, we've had some light chilly rain this morning, but behind it, the air is cold enough and is creating some light snow this morning and snow showers from Michigan to Minnesota. Light snow began falling yesterday in St. Paul, Minnesota. Streets quickly became damp and slick. Trees began to take a whitened appearance. Actually, in the next half hour, we will talk to Kristen Dodd. She's in Michigan, and we'll have live reports out of the area so that we could actually see perhaps the first burst of snow we've seen across this region. Widespread snow showers over much of the upper Mississippi Valley and the Great Lakes area this morning. Even as far south as St. Louis, we've had reports of moderate snow at the airport in St. Louis. And you can see just spiraling off toward the south and then east here. It's all in a counterclockwise fashion. We've had some light snow in western Kentucky. Chilly rains here everywhere, I'd say, east of my hand. Oh, this is chilly rain, but back to the west, we're talking about snow and snow showers. Again, it's all pivoting around our main area of low pressure. So this is snow here, southern Indiana, Indianapolis reporting snow up to Gary, Indiana, Chicago snowing this morning. Now, no heavy accumulations expected, but it is enough to make travel a little treacherous and kind of tricky for you this morning. So please allow extra time. Roads will be slushy throughout the area. Here is our main low pressure at the surface, and all throughout this region we're talking about slushy roadways, the interstates, really tricky. Be careful. Interstate 35, Interstate 82 from eastern Nebraska into central Iowa. Not only are we talking about the snow showers, but very gusty winds in excess of 30 to 35 miles an hour, with our broad trough of low pressure right here over the upper Midwest. The rest of the nation looking pretty good, though. We've had our frontal boundary to clear off the coast, much of the west in the clear, the only exception, the extreme Pacific Northwest. So then, with our trough of low pressure just rotating around it, we have the wintry east and a summer west, because around that high pressure over the southwest, we're getting offshore winds, and it'll be warmer, but very cold here with our counterclockwise circulation. Cold and windy over the Midwest, but with high pressure over the southwest, the offshore winds will keep it fairly mild. And with more details on the hot weather, here's Will.
We'll talk more about the cold weather as well, which is going to be extending today from the northern plains, cooling air.
Midday hour shows our main system over the upper Midwest, our first dose of snow throughout the region. So we're talking about widespread snow showers Minnesota, the lower peninsula of Michigan, the upper peninsula, Wisconsin, much of Illinois, Indiana. Chilly rains to start off, but as our second little impulse slides and rotates here around this main area of low pressure in the upper levels, and we're talking about some of the rain in central and eastern Ohio, perhaps changing over and mixing in with snow later today. So what a wintry scene across much of this area. No heavy amounts of accumulations, but it will certainly see the snow falling from the sky across this area. The rest of the nation in pretty good shape as our surface Marianas, but as it continues to move west, of course it's moving away from the Mariana Islands, and we do anticipate the system to quickly and sharply move east, and that will take it back over the Pacific waters. By the way, this is a look at the Pacific waters, mainland China here, this is Korea and Japan, a little closer inspection, the Philippines here. Now, as it starts to curve farther north and then east, perhaps it will be closer to Okinawa. So definitely, no, not Okinawa, but Iwo Jima, and we'll have to keep you posted on that in terms of very gusty winds and locally heavy rains. Now, I'll tell you what, just one interesting note that I was reading over the computer, that it says that now Guam is right about here, the southernmost island of the Marianas, and it said that doctors at the Guam Memorial Hospital asked women who were at least 7 months pregnant to go to the hospital because pressure changes can trigger labor. 82 expected mothers checked into the hospital Sunday, and 16 gave birth. So, I'll tell you what, Mother Nature and her vast influences on the weather and just life itself. And speaking of low pressure, we've certainly had a broad cyclonic flow here over the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes area. Certainly this low pressure does not compare with our super typhoon in the West Pacific for our expected mothers, so not to worry here, but we do anticipate snow accumulations, maybe 1 to 3 inches, the arrowhead of Minnesota, the northwestern parts of Indiana, the lower peninsula of Michigan, but a broad area of snow showers we've seen so far this morning. So if you have travel plans anywhere across the Midwest and the upper Mississippi River Valley, be prepared. Slushy driving conditions. Interstate 80 from eastern Nebraska around Omaha and Lincoln. We've had reports of snow this morning over to Dubuque, Iowa. Chicago even waking up to snow. Milwaukee and around St. Louis. Now, you folks in St. Louis, I tell you what, we've got the broad upper level low here that we'll be watching. And around the base of this trough or low pressure, we've had a few showers skirting across north central Arkansas near Harrison, and notice how it's starting to move eastward near Memphis, Tennessee. We think low clouds will linger much of the day over northern Georgia, maybe around Atlanta, but you go south of Atlanta, say from Macon down to Valdosta, much of Mississippi and Alabama. Quite a bit of sunshine will be found here. New Orleans over to Houston, a great day is shaping up. Houston around the Galleria area, level low pressure system spinning over the Midwest. And we have reports of widespread snow showers from central, eastern Minnesota right on down to the St. Paul area still this morning. Hibbing, Duluth, and International Falls reporting a little heavier snow here over the arrowhead of Minnesota. And notice how it's pushing across central, northern Illinois, even southern Illinois, say from Marion over to the St. Louis area. We have reports of snow in Covington, Kentucky, a good part of Indiana, Indianapolis, South Bend, and Gary reporting snow. So we are waking up to a wintry scene this morning. Winds here coming from the north and northwest and basically just spiraling off toward the east here. This is the southern end of that broad trough of low pressure, so most of this precipitation is moving off to the east. A lot of this is snow in western Kentucky, but across the eastern parts and into West Virginia, we have reports of light, chilly rain, much of the same over eastern Ohio. A little farther north, and again, the winds here coming from the north and west, and we've had reports of snow right here over the western parts of the lower peninsula of Michigan. We've had one little weak part of the system move across the lower peninsula, but still with our surface low back here, we are finding that counterclockwise rotation, winds blowing off of the lakes, and picking up some of the moisture from the lakes and then depositing it in the form of snow over the western parts of the lower peninsula. Now, Grand Rapids is right about here, and in the midst of the light snow showers this morning, we have our very own Kristen Dodge standing by in Grand Rapids, and she joins us now. Kristen?
Well, Vivian, we did have a few flurries earlier today, but things are very quiet here in Grand Rapids. Although we are finding the snow, it's heading toward us, although it's coming in on cars that are a little bit farther to our west. I was able to scoop up a very wet and heavy snowball from a car that just headed in from Holland, Michigan, which is right on the shoreline of Lake Michigan. Behind me, we have the city of Grand Rapids and the Grand River that runs through the heart of downtown. And just below me is Interstate 96. And the cars here are coming from the direction of Lake Michigan, and some of those cars have been toting a little bit of snow with them. And that is where we are seeing the more significant snowfall, generally right along the lake. And we do have lake effect snow advisories in effect for the shoreline along Lake Michigan, and that does include the cities of Muskegon and also Holland. Now, in the past half hour, Vivian, I was called out of our restaurant by one of the local radio stations to do an interview, and of course they think it's hysterical that we're out here and all bundled up because they're used to weather like this. And as a matter of fact, this is fantastic weather compared to the snowstorm that hit Monday over in Sparta, which is just to the north of us. They had as much as 8 inches of snow and widespread power outages, so a few flurries are welcome here in Grand Rapids.
Well, thanks very much, Kristen. I'll tell you what, not as bad of a scene across the upper Midwest as what we saw last week, but still you'll have to deal with snow showers and a wintry travel scenario here across much of the Midwest. Again, Kristen Dodd reporting live from Grand Rapids, Michigan, right about here, where we anticipate more snow showers to build as we go through the afternoon hours. Winds have been generally out of the north and northwest, and they've been gusting too, making for brutal wind chills. So it's definitely a wintry scene across much of the upper Midwest. And I'll tell you what, with that wintry scenario, we're talking about a lot of cold air. High pressure over the southwest, and that's making for warm conditions as we continue with the offshore flow. So a wintry scene over the west, but it feels like summer. A wintry scene over the east, but it feels like summer out west. And as we continue with our cyclonic flow and just the general counterclockwise rotation, you can pretty much see, again, the wintry scenario, very windy, making for brutal wind chills, but with high pressure over the southwest, the clockwise flow around it, offshore winds, and another hot one in store for Southern California. How hot, you ask? Well, with the answer, here's Will.
We'll talk about some of that hot weather in Southern California and some more cold weather, which will be
over the southwest. As far as precipitation goes, with that trough here, rain along the coast as a little coastal storm will develop, much like we had to deal with, of course, last weekend. So definitely we'll watch this. Indiana, western Ohio, all of this is snow. We've had a burst of heavier snow just south of St. Louis. Now, a different perspective shows the overall movement of the precipitation, and this is generally moving off toward the east as we have a broad cyclonic flow. And with that in mind, the snow and most of the precipitation, the winds, have been blowing in a counterclockwise fashion. So all of this drifting off toward the east. We've had some lighter rains here across central Tennessee. A lot of this not touching the ground, basically representative of mid-level moisture. But the snow has been widespread across the central parts of Illinois, Indiana, Chicago now. We do not anticipate any heavy accumulations, but it certainly is making for a wintry scene this morning as we wake up. Winds coming in off of the western Great Lakes here, Lake Superior, Lake Michigan. We've had one little trough to swing across the lower peninsula of Michigan, and here's another little swing on through too, and we'll find a burst of a little bit of light snow across the lower peninsula of Michigan as we go through the afternoon hours. Now, lake effect advisories have been issued right here, the lower peninsula of Michigan, as winds come off of Lake Michigan. So you definitely want to be on the lookout here. And we have our very young Kristen Dodd. She's standing by in Grand Rapids right here, and she joins us now with the latest. Kristen?
Well, Vivian, if you look very, very closely, you may see a few flurries flying. That has developed over the past 10 minutes. We have seen a few snowflakes, but it's nothing compared to what they are getting closer to Lake Michigan, We had a car drive into our parking lot from Holland, Michigan, which is about 25 miles to our southwest, and they had quite a bit of snow on their car, so we've been taking advantage of that and making a few snowballs. A very wet and heavy snow, perfect for making the snowmen. Now behind me, we are in Grand Rapids, and you can see the skyline there behind me.
The latest information that we've received on our typhoon, this is Super Typhoon Pete. It's starting to lose some of its punch. The Mariana Islands here, you know what, as it moved across the southern Mariana Islands yesterday, was packing winds in excess of 200 miles an hour, thus a super typhoon. It brought quite a bit of devastation. We've had reports of over 25,000 people without power over the islands, and Guam, which is right here, the southernmost island, we've only had reports of sporadic power outages, so that's the good news. Guam, the southernmost island, as our system continues to move west. Now we do anticipate the system to make a sharp turn to the north and then quickly move back off toward the east, back into the open waters of the Pacific. By the way, this is Japan, this is Korea, mainland China here, Vietnam, the Philippines, and of course this being the Western Pacific. And we've been watching this typhoon as it moves west, but again, we are expecting it to quickly make a turn to the east, and it should stay well south of mainland Japan here. We'll keep you posted. The latest Super Typhoon Keith, as it has already brought devastation and destruction to the Mariana Islands here. Okay, now from the tropical situation to the wintry weather, as we've started to shift our focus on the winter scene, getting closer and closer to the official beginning of winter season. And we've been watching this broad trough of low pressure over the upper Midwest, and we have reports of the widespread
in the next half hour
over this region. So if you have travel plans in the area, watch out for the bursts of snow showers. No heavy accumulations expected, but certainly enough to make for tricky and slushy driving conditions this morning. Now, aside from the snow showers, it will be very blustery today. Winds generally out of the north and northwest in excess of 20 and 30 miles an hour over the upper Midwest, so quite wintry, and those wind chills are brutal across the area. Broad trough of low pressure here, making it feel like winter over the east. And with that winter scenario, we talk about a messy time of it, the cyclonic flow here, just the counterclockwise rotation, that cold air being poured southward. So watch out across much of the upper Midwest. Across the west, though, we have a big ridge of high pressure, and here we have a clockwise flow. So the offshore winds in Southern California, talking about a hot day shaping up in Southern California. Mid-90s expected today after a record set yesterday in Southern California, some 99 degrees in LA. And with more details on that, here's Will.
Okay, Vivian, once again, those offshore winds will help keep the heat on one more day.
Okay, it's time now to check out the forecast for the end of the week into the weekend. You know, we always look at the jet stream because the jet stream is a representation of the fastest winds in the upper levels of the atmosphere. And actually, those fast winds in the upper levels steer systems at the surface. And also, it's a good indication of where we'll find the cooler air. Everywhere north of the jet stream, typically you'll find cooler air, but south of it, it'll remain fairly mild. So that means another warm day today across the southwest and perhaps lingering until tomorrow. But I'll tell you what, the cool scenario stays in place over the Great Lakes tomorrow in the upper Mississippi Valley. And then by the end of the week, a deeper trough of low pressure develops along the eastern seaboard, and we're talking about a wet time of it along the east coast. Let's start off with the afternoon highs. We're forecasting tomorrow, though, below average, 50s here.